in Patrick Yende. Die-hard spectators braved the elements as rain began falling. Being first on the road, Kuhn was having the best of the road conditions. He was pushing hard and using every piece of road as is his custom, but the pace just was not in the car. Despite being a front runner for many years, Kuhn has never won an overall national title and is desperate to do so. He won 2 rounds last year, but unreliability cost him any shot of the title. A year earlier, he had blown his title shot by hitting a rock early in the final event, when simply finishing would have secured him the crown. He finished second fastest in stage 5, and in this stage moving him ahead of Habig in the overnight standings. Habig is always spectacular to watch as he gives it his all. His committed efforts paid off in stages 4, 5 and 6 as he was third quickest on all 3. However, it wasn't enough to keep Kuhn at bay as the latter overturned a 14-second deficit after stage 4 to lead by 11 seconds. Habig has won 4 national titles, all with Judd navigating. This will be their 14th year as a team. With a healthy lead, Damsu didn't have to risk anything and was now controlling the pace from the front. Watch him using the middle of the road while others were using every edge. Despite his conservative approach, Damsu still set the second fastest stage time in stages 4 and 6 and won stage 5 to increase his overall lead still further. Gemmell held second from Skalkberger after 3 stages, but he was battling with incorrect brake discs. They were beginning to glaze and affecting his pace over the remaining stages as the problem got progressively worse.
Sorrel, this event started out dry. The rain set in now. Tell us about the road surface and what the competitors can expect.
Still not quite in the groove, but he was within range of class leader Fecken. However, a puncture cost him about 30 seconds in stage 4. Fecken had suffered a high-speed trip into the sugarcane fields in stage 3 after cresting a blind rise at full tilt in 6th gear, only to find the road turning away. He was quickly on his way again, but on the next stage the player jammed in 3rd gear. It couldn't be fixed before the evening service, but nonetheless Fecken did a sterling job to lose minimal time to Damsu Jr. over the remaining gravel stages and hold on to his class lead. Berger was enjoying his new car. The Impreza was only offloaded from the ship in the early hours of the Thursday morning before the event, forcing the crew to pull out all the stops to assemble it before the start of the rally. It also meant that he hadn't driven it on gravel at all before the first stage. Nevertheless, he quickly got to grips with it and set the fastest stage time in stage 4 to move into 2nd overall ahead of Gemmell. However, this puncture on the left rear cost him a further 2 minutes, dropping him to 5th. Lawrence's woes hadn't ended with the solving of his puncture problem. Stage 5 saw him lose another chunk of time when the rear suspension triangle broke, shedding a wheel. It was proving to be a frustrating event for the Centurion businessman, and he had to accept the fact that he was languishing at the lower end of the top 10, rather than the head of the field where he expected to be. Van der Merwe was setting consistent times, comfortably holding down a place in the top 10. Blackman was pedaling the tail-happy BMW hard, much to the delight of the fans. The raspy 2-litre Beamer engine sounded glorious, but it's a bit too loud for the officials and will have to be muted before the next event. The car still runs with a manual gearbox compared to the rest of the Class A8 cars, which run sequential gearboxes, giving them a performance advantage. The car also needs to shed a few kilos, although Blackman isn't sure that he can trim it any further. Nevertheless, he had been making steady progress up the field and now held 7th overall. The final 2 stages of the day were run in the dark in the centre of Pinetown. It was pouring with rain, but that didn't stop a huge crowd of eager fans gathering to watch the action. The cars ran the same stage twice, and both occasions were run to a super special format, which sees 2 cars going head-to-head against each other. Teammates Kuhn and Habig took each other on in the first duel. The conditions were tough for competitors, with visibility in the rain significantly reduced. After a disappointing day out on the gravel, these stages gave the Golfs an opportunity for some success. Kuhn duly obliged by setting the 2nd fastest time on the first run and the fastest time on the 2nd. On both occasions, Habig was only 1 second slower. Berger and Damsu Jr. went head-to-head. The younger Damsu is somewhat of a specialist on these stages and didn't disappoint. He set the fastest time in the first run, followed by 2nd fastest on the final stage of the day. Berger did his cause no good by spinning, but he recovered quickly with minimal time lost to set a competitive time. Fecken was still stuck in 3rd gear and doing a good job, but he wrong-slotted here to allow JP Damsu to close the gap even more. He lost 20 seconds on each running of the stage, allowing Damsu to narrow the gap to just 13 seconds at the overnight halt. Fecken wasn't the only one getting lost. Ryan and Carahill made even more of a hash of it, getting lost twice. On the 2nd occasion, they even had to ask directions from the marshal. After a tough day in the field, they were languishing down in 16th place at the overnight halt. The fans enjoyed the action. Despite being wet and cold, they put the weather behind them to watch until the very end. At the end of day 1, Damsu had a comfortable 44-second lead over Kuhn, with 2nd to 5th places separated by a little over 2 minutes. With the unpredictable weather set to play a part, anything could happen on day 2. Was brilliant, while Lawrence was in unfamiliar territory in 10th over 6 minutes behind the leader. Heavy overnight rain. On stages 10 and 11, Kuhn obliged his fan club with 2nd fastest time behind Damsu. Habig continued the surprising dominance of the 2-wheel drive cars in the conditions by rounding out the top 3 opening stage times in stage 10. Gemmell had borrowed new discs from Berger overnight, but still wasn't on the pace of the Toyota, losing 25 seconds to Damsu in stages 10 and 11. Berger was slow out of the blocks, also dropping time on both opening stages. Fecken was pleased to have 5 gears once again after his crew changed the gearbox at the overnight service. He couldn't afford to hang back as JP Damsu was now breathing down his neck. Nevertheless, he took it cautiously through the water splash, as the players' electrics always have an aversion to the slightest amount of water. With Fecken in his sights, Damsu wasn't hanging around and was a lot less cautious through the water. It didn't help his cause though, as Fecken was 8 seconds faster in stage 10, but Damsu took back 7 seconds on the next test. Blackman and Klaassen had a top 5 finish within their sights, and they were pushing hard. They were 6th and 7th fastest on the 2 stages. Van der Merwe was increasing his pace too, challenging the Class A7 cars for stage times. After his first day disaster, Lawrence was hopeful that day 2 would bring more joy. With nothing to lose, he set about catching those ahead with purpose, but the thick mud would rip a brake caliper off. Wilkins started day 1 off too slowly, allowing Versace to take an early lead. He then picked up his pace to lead overnight, but he knew he would have to push hard to keep the team total driver behind. After years in golfs, Barry Grobler was having his first outing in the ex-Mally Savile Subaru with Mike Barrows in the navigator's seat. He was slowly getting the hang of his new mount. Versace trailed Vulcan by just 13 seconds overnight, offering the prospect of a no-holds-barred fight to the end. With both drivers in similar cars, it was down to driving ability. They set identical times in stage 10. Buerta was struggling to find the pace to match the two Toyotas and found himself 1 minute behind overnight. He lost another chunk of time on the opening 2 stages. With the pressure mounting in Class N3, Vulcan was the first to make a mistake as he slid off the road after entering a corner too quickly. There wasn't much damage, but the car was stuck fast. Supervan gave some encouragement, but it was left to navigator Houghton to get his overalls dirty as he tried everything to free the car, but to no avail. The event was over. Regional competitors Costo Koumantarakis and Barry White were also caught up by the conditions, but inflicted considerably more damage to their conquest than Vulcan did to his Run X. Rallies are all about cars, drivers and technology. We found out what went into Berger's new Subaru.
Andy Williams from ProDrive. You're involved in the build of Skulk's new car. Tell us about it.
Good morning.
His lead, Damsu started the day on maximum attack, pushing his Run X to the limits. It saw him win the opening 4 stages of the day, but puzzled the other competitors who felt that he didn't need to be taking such a risk. Damsu simply said he wanted to show the others that they had no chance and shouldn't bother attacking his lead. Perhaps he was just having fun. While the controversy about his stage 2 let-off raged on, Koen was still pushing hard in an attempt to put some daylight between himself and teammate Habig. Let's watch as he fights the car through the tight sugarcane stages. This was the stage that brought Koen's event to an end last year, while he was comfortably in the lead with just 2 stages to go. His retirement on that occasion was due to the Golf's engine dropping a valve. He was hoping that no such bad luck would befall him this time around. Habig was victorious on this event last year, but without a stageman to his name up to this point, a repeat performance was unlikely barring a huge stroke of misfortune for others. Gemmel's car was running reliably, unlike last season when he suffered mechanical failure in almost every event. Perhaps it was because he had not led the event yet, as last year's leading appeared to be his bogey. He was now chasing down Habig for 3rd place. After 11 stages, the gap was just 20 seconds and he was driving hard, perhaps too hard. Note how he threw the wieldy Subaru through the tight stage until he overdid it and slid into a tree. Fortunately, the Subaru could continue without losing too much time, but the battered car was much the worse for wear. As an indication of what time he may have set on the stage, he lost just 24 seconds to Abig, who was second fastest on the stage. Berger decided to take no risks, as his puncture of the day before had put Gemmell out of reach. However, with the latter having seriously damaged his car against the tree, Berger was starting to sniff that a Class N4 win might be on the cards after all. Feckin was starting to open a more comfortable gap over Damsu Jr., but there was not much in it. JP was still pushing hard, as he knew that Feckin's lead was tenuous. There was still a chance of taking the class win. Blackman was nearing his goal of a top 6 finish, despite the car still suffering from the misfire. With its tail out of style, photographers still have an opportunity to capture the classic opposite lock rally pick when the Beamer comes past.